the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Paris, and a look back at some other American heroes from the greatest generation. That's all coming up on today's Hot Zone.
This is the Hot Zone. Engaging with the news in a whole new way, international war correspondent Chuck Holton brings insight into areas of crisis and lets you help those affected.
Hey folks, Chuck Holton here. Thanks for being a part of the podcast. Look, please like and share this thing with your friends. If you've been watching the podcast and you're enjoying the content you're getting, please go out and share it. We need to up our numbers. I want to really see how many people we can get this out to. The podcast is growing. It's doing well. I'm happy with it, but really would like your help if you'd like to see it continue. So keep on sharing each episode as you get it, and I appreciate that very much. Now, let's talk about World War II. We reported in June on the 75th anniversary of the invasion of Normandy at D-Day. And so we're seeing a lot of 75th anniversaries happen across Europe now. Earlier, a few weeks ago, Vice President Pence went over and spoke at the anniversary celebration for Poland, I think the liberation of Poland. And now, just in the last couple of weeks, we've also seen the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Paris. And I've got some good footage from the liberation of Paris, which happened August 25th, 1944. And just I think it's cool to look back and to see what a really winning a war looks like. Because when we look at the wars that we're seeing around the world today, they're so different from what happened back in World War II. And part of that is that the world has changed, but part of it also is a change in the mindset of the people fighting the war. That is, the people at the Pentagon, our government, and even our culture, American culture. We don't really have the will to do things like the firebombing of Dresden or the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the very things that put an end to World War II, to that great conflict. And so one of the interesting things about the war or the liberation of Paris is that the Americans initially did not want to go. They wanted to go around Paris. Their focus was on destroying the German army as quickly as possible, destroying their capabilities to fight, and just leaving the ones that were occupying Paris for later, because the threat had been that if the Americans attacked Paris, that the Germans would level the whole city. And the Americans believed that Paris as a cultural icon was worth saving. So it's not that we just had a scorched earth policy in World War II, but it was the difference is that we were willing to attack not just military targets, but industrial targets that would really defeat the capabilities of the people fighting us. And that's much, much harder when you're fighting an insurgency like we are today. And the scary thing is that we're seeing the insurgency that we've been fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq sort of metastasize around the world. And so now there's an insurgency in Europe, without a doubt. And we're kind of seeing signs of an insurgency even in the United States when it comes to the lone wolf attacks and that sort of thing that ISIS has perpetrated here in our country. So it's nice to look back and to celebrate the victories of the past, and also to hear from some of the veterans who were there. So let's do that now. This is from the liberation of Paris and the celebration of the 75th anniversary of that just a couple weeks ago. Check it out.
Tanks of the French Armored Division. This part of the city is under Patriot control. The Germans cleared out. But in other parts, the battle is on in full fury, which makes the incoming motorized equipment all the more welcome. The great Cathedral of Notre Dame as the French Armored Division moves to complete the liberation of Paris. Paris with all its legends of romance, armored equipment on the Champs-Élysées with its famous rows of chestnut trees, and then the Place de la Concorde and the Arc de Triomphe, symbol of the glory of Paris. French armored division with new American equipment, it speedily crushes the remaining Nazi resistance in the city, and the battle for Paris ends with the final turmoil of a series of clashes.
Well, it's an honor to be here, but one of the main reasons is because my division, the 28th Division, liberated Paris back in 1944. So that makes it even special.
I arrived in Le Havre with all other troops that were liberated, and we had to stay there for a few days, and we wanted to see Paris. So we just left and came into Paris. We stayed in Paris for a few days, and we were AWOL, without leave. Some officer found us, and he sent us back to Le Havre. Maybe 4 or 5 days, eating donuts, but it was just great. It was great.
The Germans surrender, the arrogant Nazi overlords who for 4 years kept the people crushed under a tyranny of brutality and killing. Now they are not so arrogant as they pass through crowds of people whom they ground under heel and who now make mock of them.
Frankly, the veterans, all the veterans of World War II, I think we saved the world. I mean, to be under the domination of a dictatorship like the Hitler regime, and some of the terrible, terrible things that they did, and especially some of the stormtroopers. I mean, when you talk about taking little kids out on a firing range and shooting them for target practice, I mean, it's emotional. I can't imagine anybody doing anything like that. So, I think we really did save the world. The guy had to be stopped.
That's what's important about the liberation of Paris. It was a new thing. Something had changed. The world was going to get a little better. You saw buildings that people were living in that were knocked down, etc. You went through London, it was torn down. In the United States, you didn't see that. So that the war was just, a figure, imagination. You were psyched, let's go. Nothing can happen. But once you saw the real thing, then you were frightened. And the bullets started flying at you. When you got to Paris, the bullets had stopped already. So it was a different kind of world.
Paris hails the liberating Allies, stars and stripes, and the flag of Canada. And everywhere is seen Mademoiselle of Gay Paris. Paris has known many a gala day, but seldom anything like this. If Mademoiselle is not tall enough, well, she gets a helping arm.
It was over. You came into Paris, you were a hero. There was, the mademoiselles were around, we in the prison camp talked about food constantly. As soon as we were liberated that day, the talk was all sex. I mean, these were men. They were starved, but still we were liberated.
The liberation of Paris. What a day that was, or rather what a series of days. The girl walked down the Champs-Élysées, wildly cheered by exultant crowds.
So I was there the whole time, and I want to be told so that people know, and I speak for the infantry, especially the combat infantry, because people hear the stories of Hollywood, but they don't want to talk about the story of the guys that really did the job, the combat infantry. And I try to tell people that the story I give is not any different for the next guy. There was another regiment, another division, another place.
So about 5 years ago, we did a special for the Life of Duty Network on the liberation of Europe and D-Day, and interviewed some other really cool veterans of those battles, especially of Saint-Mary-Église. And I want to introduce you to this guy. My friend Oliver North was there with us and did the interviews. And this interview was really something special. This veteran's no longer with us. And so I think it's really appropriate to go back and listen to some of what he had to say about what it was like during the jump on Saint-Mary-Église and the invasion of Normandy.
Nearly 1 million men took part in the invasion. But before they hit the beaches, more than 13,000 paratroopers became the first Allied boots on the ground. Their mission? Keep the Germans from reinforcing their units on the coast as the Allies came ashore. The airborne operation required 2,395 aircraft and 867 gliders.
This is the town of Saint-Mary-Église, and those bells are ringing at the Church of Notre Dame. If you notice on the front of the church, on the belfry, a paratrooper. His name is John Steele. He was part of the 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment that parachuted into this town on the night of 5 June 1944. Pathfinders for the invasion that was to come.
In 1944, John Perozzi was a private in the 82nd Airborne. Every plane he'd ever ridden, he'd jumped from.
5 jumps back at home, 1 night jump. Packed your own parachute.
That's right.
The first combat jump you made is when?
Normandy, June the 5th. The night of June the 5th.
The mission that you're on, the late at night on the 5th of June, is to do what?
We'll land near Saint-Mary-Église.
The little town of Saint-Mary-Église was crucial because it lay on the most likely route of a German counterattack. John took us to the farmer's field where his boots first touched French soil.
This drop zone right here,
Right.
surrounded by Germans?
They were on both sides of the hedgerow. You didn't know Germans were there. There was plenty of artillery fire, rocket fire, constantly, all night long.
How many 60-millimeter mortar rounds did you carry in with you the night before D-Day?
70. You know, there was 12 in the vest, and I think we had 6 men, so
72 rounds.
yeah, we burned them right up quick.
So did you have any left by dawn?
No. Then it was hand to hand. Then we got some more mortar shells. And then Saint-Mary-Église was in our hip pocket then.
The morning of the 6th, you guys are parachuted into the landing zone, and you come into this barnyard.
Yes.
And you meet a beautiful young French girl.
Right here.
Cecile, please.
Cecile. Oh.
Merci, merci.
Cecile Gancel was only 11 in June of '44. She and her family fled to the French countryside during the Nazi occupation and were living in this barn.
Were the Germans around this farm?
Ah oui? Oui, oui, oui. Ils étaient où? Ah bah ils étaient, on sait pas trop, on les voyait arriver.
On the morning she saw the paratroopers, US paratroopers, fall down in that field just behind the little barn. And she saw also the Germans trying to shoot the paratroopers.
They didn't shoot us, so we're here.
We're glad to see you.
We're happy to see you.
Yes.
C'est comme ça, c'est la vie. Et le pauvre John, il a été blessé.
Oui.
Et on disait toujours, oh, ces petits gars-là, 20 ans, 18 ans, 20 ans, 21 ans, ils nous ont sauvé la vie. Hein?
She said that often she thinks about young men, 18, 90, who came for her and her family, and they saved all the French people.
The French people on the Normandy coast have a great appreciation for American servicemen. During our visit, they flocked to greet JP and thank him for his service to America, France, and all mankind.
All right, folks, thanks for watching. We really appreciate it. We'll see you back here again tomorrow. Thanks for watching The Hot Zone.
The Hot Zone is produced by Amy Holton and Livefire Media. Copyright 2019.